Look at Michael Jackson. He got all these gangbangers behind him and they don't with him.
If someone like Eazy-E can say that the king of pop was heavily involved in gang culture, then it has to be true. But hearing someone like Michael Jackson being a part of the Crips or Bloods sounds very odd because not a single person would expect something like that. Well, you'll be surprised to find out that gang members have actually starred in his music videos too. So let's discuss MJ and all the gangs he was a part of. Before he was a global pop culture icon and the biggest influence in music and dance, he was just a little boy born to two working-class African-American parents, with 9 other siblings living in a small house in Gary, Indiana. Now, the thing about Gary, Indiana is what attracted people to move there. U.S. Steel founded the city in 1906, which meant that Gary Works Factory was hiring people very quickly. So a bunch of people from all over decided to move there, hoping to land a job and support the family. Plus, many African Americans wanted to avoid the Jim Crow laws in the South and found Gary to be the perfect place to move to. But as soon as the white folk moved into the city in bulk, the steel industry had a lot of competition. This meant layoffs, closures, and a lot of families having to suffer. What does any of this have to do with Michael Jackson? Well, the fact that a lot of people were laid off from the industry. Gary went from being the city of the century to a place where nightmares were born. The crime rate skyrocketed, and many gangs slowly started to form, making Gary a very dangerous place to live in.
As early as the 1950s, it was described as full of sin, crime, and open immorality. This immorality was shrouded in a black pall of smoke from the steel mills. In 1994, Gary was dubbed the capital of the US, as it had the highest rate of per capita of any city in the country.
All these problems in a city, and young Michael had no way out. He was born to Joe and Catherine Jackson, both of whom worked multiple jobs to support their massive family. They lived in a very uncomfortable environment. It was like squeezing around 11 people in a 2-bedroom and 1-bathroom house.
Well, we had bunk beds, 3-tier bunk beds. So Michael and I slept at the top, Jermaine and Tito in the middle, and Jackie's at the bottom, getting all the showers.
Living in such conditions only meant that most of Michael's time was spent outside their cramped home. When he was 7 years old, Gary was declining rapidly, and his neighborhood was flooded with and crime. But Joe wanted to keep his children safe from whatever was happening outside. Michael wasn't allowed to play with any of the neighborhood kids and could only play with his siblings. He and his brothers weren't allowed to stay over the night at anyone's houses, nor were they allowed to invite anyone over. At the time, even the children would have thought that inviting a friend over to their tiny home was a bad idea. Joe just wanted to keep his family safe because moving out of Gary wasn't really an option. MJ spent more time cooped up indoors and could only leave the house to go to school, but on certain occasions, like the last day of school, Joe didn't let any of his kids go. Why? That's because most of the kids would settle their scores, rivalries, and grudges because no one would get in trouble the next day. It may sound like harmless fun, but because of the rising gang culture in the community, Joe just couldn't take any risks. Michael wasn't known to be a violent kid though. It was just that he was exposed to the culture at a very young age. He and his 2 older brothers would walk through the Delaney projects every morning because it was on the way to school. This area was known for the residents being a part of violent gangs, so it was pretty dangerous for MJ and his siblings. The members of the Delaney projects were cool with Michael and his brothers because of the band they were in. Back in 1964, Michael and his brother Marlon joined the Jackson Brothers. This was a band that their father formed. At the time, it included Jackie, Tito, and Jermaine. A family band sounds like something a group of siblings would do for fun, but Joe took this very seriously. He'd resort to violence and mistreatment if Jay's siblings denied their father ever using violence to discipline them. They said that Michael was just too young, which was why it affected him the way it did. Their father just did what was necessary to discipline his kids and keep them out of trouble. Their band, which was initially called the Jackson Brothers, changed to the Jackson 5 in 1965. MJ started singing as a lead, and they slowly started performing everywhere. Now, back to the Delaney projects. People knew of the Jackson 5, which was why they avoided getting mugged or attacked. Could this be Michael's opening to connect with a gang member at an early age? Well, that would have been the case, but the gang wars moved closer to the Jackson household. Regular fistfights just outside their porch turned into shootouts. Michael and his family had to duck down to avoid any incoming bullets or shrapnel. Lucky for the Jackson 5's success, Motown Records moved the family to Los Angeles away from the gang-infested streets of Gary, Indiana in 1969. But this wasn't the last time the Jacksons would be seeing a gang member. What it did do, though, was open a completely new chapter for the struggling family. Michael wanted to branch out his talents to new journeys and pushed for a solo career. In the 70s, Quincy Jones helped produce MJ's first solo album, Off the Wall. This turned out to be a huge success. selling over 20 million copies all over the world. It was only a matter of time till he'd become a global sensation. His second album, Thriller, did just that. MJ was on his way to being the biggest thing the world had ever seen. His second album stayed on the #1 spot on the album charts for around 37 weeks. It sold over 100 million sales, with 29 million of those being just in the US. Michael was breaking records he didn't know he was capable of breaking, and it's all thanks to Thriller, an album and track that's still streamed to this day. The pop music wasn't just limited to just a particular ethnicity. It wasn't music for white people, nor was it solely restricted to African Americans. His music united the two in his concerts because everyone was there for one thing and one thing only: seeing Michael Jackson perform. MJ also revealed that he was born and raised in front of a mic on stage, and anything away from his comfort zone felt foreign. He was learning the basics of socializing when he was 24 and just got the hang of making friends.
I love performing. I could sleep on stage. I hate leaving the stage. I was raised on stage, and when I'm not on stage, I'm not as happy, and everything seems to be foreign to me or new. And I'm just now beginning to enjoy friendship, which is new for me.
Songs like Billie Jean and The Girl Is Mine helped give Thriller the boost it needed as far as sales were concerned. It was a platinum success, but there's one specific song that changed the trajectory of Michael's career. On February 14th, 1983, MJ released Beat It, and this track alone marked his name on all the Hall of Fame plaques and awards. He was truly the pop icon of the century, and no one could ever come close to the success he had. Beat It was inspired by MJ's experience with gang culture back when he was growing up in Gary. It cost him $150,000 to produce, and looking back, the money was absolutely worth it. At first, the network refused to produce it or film it because Jackson chose the gritty Skid Row area of Los Angeles. He wanted the music video to look as authentic as possible because although the song was based on his experience with gang culture, he wanted to promote peace. Instead of hiring actors as backup dancers and extras, Michael wanted actual gang members from the Crips and Bloods. This was a very daring move by the king of pop because no one would ever think of making such a proposition.
Hey, he was big crippin' in that one picture.
Boy.
Why? Who taught him that?
The homies in the video that was with it. It was all LA niggas.
You was there or no?
No. I was a youngster.
Oh, okay.
It was all LA dudes. It was like actors, and you know how we be having niggas in videos and shit?
Yeah.
You know how like them niggas show up, and they showed up in their attire. And when they got close to Mike, they was like, do this, put that, do that. Mike was like,
Mike big.
Mike, do you know what you just did, Mike?
No, I don't. I don't know what does this mean crip?
80 gang members were called on set, and some of these included those from the Barrio Nuevo Estrada gang, one of the most prominent Hispanic criminal gangs in the country. With the help of the Los Angeles Police Department's gang squad, Michael was able to connect these rival gangs under one setting with no violence or fighting involved. This was probably the first time someone made an actual connection with the East Coast Crips. To put it this way, the only person who was able to join rival gangs at one venue after Michael Jackson is Kendrick Lamar at his pop-out show. The reason this is such a huge deal is because the East Coast Crips is probably the largest Black American gang on the east side of South Central Los Angeles. It has many sets including the Tongan Crip Gang, Rollin' 20s Crips, and many, many more. Many artists and rappers you're familiar with today are probably a part of one set or the other. For Beat It, Michael recruited members of the 716 East Coast Crips. He even sent a bus and arranged transport for the gang because he really wanted them there for the shoot. As expected, there were a few arguments and altercations on set between the 716 East Coast Crips and the rival Blood Gang on set, but MJ was able to cool everyone down. The director of the music video, Bob Giraldi, found this to be one of the most memorable experiences in his job.
Everybody came from everywhere, and I never forget the smoke in that factory, you know, in that warehouse, and those doors opening. I mean, it was really hot, and there was not one bit of trouble.
The shoot went pretty successful, and as a thank you, had the chance to hang out with the king of pop. The whole process was very civilized and successful, so successful that the music video has over 1 billion views on YouTube. This wasn't the only time he would pull something like this though. In 1987, after earning praise from all over the world and achieving global icon status, he released Bad. MJ chose the same location to shoot the music video for The Way You Make Me Feel. Only this time, he invited the 890 East Coast Crips. He He then personally selected members from the gang to be in his video. The question everyone had on their mind was how he had these contacts in the first place. Not only was he uniting rival gangs, but he was also finding people from specific sets of the Crips. He also brought Latino gang members on set and asked everyone to decorate the set with graffiti. It was as if MJ was hosting a daycare center for some of the most dangerous men in Los Angeles. Apart from the 890 East Coast Crips, he also included the F's Broadway Gangster Crips, the Zenith's 13, 18th Street, the 107 Hoover, and the East Coast Crips. The shooting of The Way You Make Me Feel brought everyone the iconic photo of MJ throwing a Crip gang sign surrounded by gang members from different sets. This is the same photo Snoop Dogg was laughing at because of how crazy it is to see someone like MJ throwing a gang sign. Here's where the rumors started though. Eazy-E claimed that the gangbangers had MJ's back through and through. The situation was very odd to think about because it was rare to see a pop artist be affiliated with them in the first place. But Eazy-E wasn't the first person who put the pieces together. MJ actually had a long-running rivalry with Prince in the 80s. In one of his audio interviews, Michael said that he was so rude, one of rudest people I've ever met. Prince is very competitive. He has been very mean and nasty to my family. Jackson also doesn't like to be compared to someone like Prince. Usually, an artist would say this out of respect, but there was nothing but bad blood in those words. MJ said that he had proven himself since he was very little and that Prince was more like his opponent. In 1983, both icons were invited on stage at a James Brown concert in LA. MJ performed first and sang a few lines from a song. The crowd loved him and waited for Prince to knock the ball out of the park. Unfortunately, while performing, Prince almost stumbled and fell onto the audience, leaving him completely embarrassed and ashamed. The reason these two started to dislike each other was assumed to be because Prince kept declining MJ's request to collaborate. He declined an invitation to participate in Michael's USA for Africa charity song, We Are the World. Prince then said no to being a part of the music video of Bad in 1987.
Well,
Quincy Jones also recalled the time when Prince tried running MJ over with his limousine. There was no public display of rivalry between these two icons, but the hatred was deep inside of them. The reason their feud didn't lead to any physical altercations or diss tracks like most of the rivalries we see today was because of the extras in MJ's music videos. Prince saw members of the Crips, Bloods, and Latino gangs in Beat It and The Way You Make Me Feel and thought that it was probably best if he sat this one out. Jackson had pretty much earned the respect of everyone on earth, including gang members. When he returned to Gary, Indiana in 2003, 20 years after he left, fans were screaming and crying. Reports say that even Crips and Bloods were fainting at the sight of him because they were all huge fans.
Michael Jackson, the king of pop. Okay, we also made a banner for Mr. Jackson so that he can take it home and put on his wall or do whatever. It says, "Welcome home, Michael." It has the students and the staff signatures on it.
But you'll never believe that the respect isn't limited to just gangbangers and criminals. Turns out, he's also earned the respect of drug lords and the mafia. When shooting They Don't Care About Us, MJ and director Spike Lee wanted to do it in the slums of Brazil. This particular area in Rio de Janeiro wasn't so safe, especially for foreigners. It was under the control of a lord named Marcio Amaro de Oliveira, also known as Marcinho VP. The man had so much power that even the Brazilian police weren't entering the slum to protect Michael and his crew. Lee and Jackson knew that they had to talk to him and offer a fat bribe to shoot in the Santa Marta favela. But turns out, they didn't have to spend a single penny. Lee said, "We didn't pay a dime, just asked permission." The guy was a big Michael Jackson fan. I didn't get to know Marcinho. He sent me a message that if we decided to make the video with Michael in the Santa Marta favela, we could lay $1 million on the street and our film equipment and no one would touch it. Marcinho assured the team saying that with Michael Jackson in town, it will be the safest place in the world. It got to a point where MJ was turning the gangster culture into an industry. No one had ever seen a pop artist with the power that he showed. Working with gang members and lords was something even the top rappers couldn't do without risking having a gun pointed at them. With power like that, he didn't fear anyone else in the music industry. When Eminem released Just Lose It, the music video parodied Jackson and allegedly made fun of his plastic surgery. The king of pop was not a fan of that at all.
I've never met Mr. Eminem, and to have him, I've always admired him, and to have him do something like that was pretty painful as an artist to another artist. And it's sad because, well, I think what Stevie Wonder said is true. And
I just don't want to say too much more than that. But he should be ashamed of himself, what he's doing. Stevie said he's bull. Is what he said.
The music video threw shade at Jackson's child mistreatment allegations, plastic surgery, and an incident where his hair caught on fire during a shoot for a Pepsi commercial. It was that incident that led people to think the Michael Jackson they saw at the time was a fake. It also made them believe that the reason his skin tone changed was because of the fire accident. These were very sensitive topics for MJ, and he wanted M to take accountability. Michael went on Steve Harvey's radio show and said, "I am very angry at Eminem's depiction of me in his video. I feel that it is outrageous and disrespectful. It is one thing to spoof, but it is another to be demeaning and insensitive. I've admired Eminem as an artist and was shocked by this. The video was inappropriate and disrespectful to me, my children, my family, and the community at large. As an act of revenge, the King of Pop simply made a deal with Sony and ATV Famous Music and bought Eminem's entire music catalog for $370 million. This also gave him rights to music made by artists such as Shakira, Bjork, Beyonce, and even Jay-Z. Hungry for power, he went after the Beatles too, and even outbid Sir Paul McCartney. Michael Jackson owned a massive percentage of the music industry, and there was no one to stop him. As far as gangs go, Joe Jackson made sure his children stayed as far away as possible from the street culture in Gary, Indiana. But it looks like he forgot to keep an eye out on his kids when they moved to Los Angeles. After all, that's where most gang members were based. It's rumored that MJ joined the Crips when he was around 16 or 17 years old. He was smart about it though, and didn't take part in any extremely violent behavior. He would often wear blue, whether at concerts, music videos, or interviews, and slowly became known as the Blue Gangster. The evidence is all over his music videos. From Beat It to The Way You Make Me Feel, there's a reason why MJ wanted to invite dangerous gang members and not hire actors. Reports say that the Crips and Bloods didn't ask for money in the first place and would shoot the music video for free. Michael refused and paid each member $100. Sure, it doesn't sound like much, but the comfortable affiliation is still very questionable. Further evidence was in his most popular music video, Smooth Criminal. You can see Jackson rocking a 1940s white mafia outfit and hoisting around a Uzi. The fact that he knew how to use it effortlessly along with it being an actual firearm raised a lot of questions too. Who taught him how to carry a gun like that? How does he know how to shoot not only a regular shotgun but a MAC-10 as well? But not all answers could be answered. On June 25th, 2009, the King of Pop took his last breath after suffering from an acute propofol intoxication. He died in Los Angeles, California, a place many consider his hometown. The interesting part is that investigations revealed that this wasn't an accidental overdose. His death was a homicide. He had been given a mixture of anti-anxiety medications that proved to be fatal for him. His doctor, Conrad Murray, was convicted of involuntary manslaughter in 2011, 2 years after the incident. No one blames him though, because he was just doing his job as Michael's personal physician. But was this true? Hearings revealed that Murray didn't perform CPR properly. Evidence proved that everything that happened was involuntary. Murray's license to practice as a physician wasn't revoked or anything like that. Further details of Michael's death are still very interesting, and since the case is closed, no one will truly know if this was an accident or if there was something or someone else involved. If you enjoyed this video, click on the ones showing on your screen now to watch similar content.